我南无曼珠悉耶，南无苏悉耶，南无达摩悉耶娑哈。我南无曼珠悉耶，南无苏悉耶，南无达摩悉耶娑哈。ye ju na zu ye ju na la ja kyung ma nu na ne gyab su chi da ki chu ni ki be cho na ki nu la ben ji sang ki ju ba shu ye na zu ki ju na la ja ju ba nu na ne gyab su chi da ki chu ni ki be cho na ki nu la ben ji sang ki ju ba shu ina zhe chu na la jiang ju ba du dan de gyao zu ji da ge zhe ge zhe su na ge nu la ben jie sang ge zhu ba zhu so jin we be ge zhu xin be zhou zhang ri ra li xin ni de ge ba di sang qian xin nu de ge ru a yi zhang ge da da xin ba jue ba zhu wu yi da yi gu ru ren na men da la sang ya da ya Please adjust your sitting posture according to 7 meditative postures of Vairocana. Then think, all sentient beings have been my mothers. All sentient beings have been my mothers, not just once, but for numberless times. Mother sentient beings are as kind as my mothers in this life. Even though all mother sentient beings want happiness and do not want even a small suffering. However, due to engaging wrongly in objects of adoptions and abandonment, they do not experience any happiness but suffering. In our mind, sincerely generate loving kindness towards all kind mother sentient beings, thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mother sentient beings were to have happiness and the causes of happiness, that are virtues. May all kind mother sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. I will cause all kind mother sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. Next, we generate compassion towards all suffering mother sentient beings, thinking, how nice it would be if the bodies of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as physical pain, sickness, and problems caused by four elements. May the bodies of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Or free the bodies of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as mental suffering, fear, and all coarse and subtle negative discursive thoughts. May the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. All coarse and subtle negative speech, such as telling lies. May the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. May the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if all sentient beings were free from all suffering and the causes of suffering that are non-virtues. May all sentient beings be free from all suffering and the causes of suffering. I will free all sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. Next, we generate bodhicitta. First, we ask ourselves, who should take on the responsibilities to free all sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms? I should take on the responsibilities to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms. Even though I should take on the responsibility, I do not have the abilities to do so now. Who has such abilities? Those who have achieved perfectly complete enlightenment have the abilities to do so. Therefore, For the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve the precious state of enlightenment. Next, we generate all-encompassing yoga mind, the aspiring conventional bodhicitta that thinks, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. This bodhicitta transform into a perfectly complete mundis at one's heart. And the ultimate bodhicitta, that is one's mind becoming in one taste with emptiness, the lack of inherent existence. These transform into a white five-pronged vajra on top of the mundis. Next, we meditate on emptiness for a short while, that I exist neither intrinsically one way, nor intrinsically different from the aggregates. Thus, I am empty of intrinsic existence. As I always say, it's very important and beneficial to conjoin whatever roots of virtue that we do through our three doors with the practice of six perfections. Thus, to conjoin these roots of virtue with the practice of six perfections, the first practice is generosity. The nature of generosity is an intentions of giving. These roots of virtue of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma is for the arising of happiness in sentient beings and purifying the sufferings of all sentient beings. Next is morality. The nature of morality is a mind of abandonment. When I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on the Dharma, I will properly abandon my physical and verbal negativities so that they do not manifest in these 2 hours. Next is patience. The nature of patience is an undisturbed mind. I will patiently accepting any physical or mental hardships that occur when I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on the Dharma.
真理是我的公司给我了，注意是吧？真理是我什么良心？那上公司结果了，看到搞我的注意的对真理什么呢？那第一个是给他的对真理是不一样的，是不是
？Next is joyous effort. The nature of joyous effort is a mind that takes delight in virtue. I will joyfully put effort in listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma.
第一就是我是上帝是我的设计那个最基本的上帝就我什么东西？当我是年上公司级别告诉难度的难也我都难度设的年上公司级别给小我的那个自己都了不起的多一呢。第一个是年上公司级别的上帝是不一样的，是不是？
Next is meditative civilization. The nature of meditative civilization is a mind that single-pointedly focuses on any virtues of that. I will single-pointedly focus my mind on the virtue of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma without being influenced by effect, distraction, and discursive thoughts.
第一就是我是写了之后的，去了当地去过的，写了就我什么东西？年上公司级别告诉去的看旅行呢，细节忙了吧，要估计先突破就全部呢。第一个是给这的，这些了就不行了，是不是？
Last one is wisdom. Wisdom, the nature of wisdom is an awareness that thoroughly distinguishes phenomena. I will properly understand the words and teachings of the Dharma that I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on.
第一就是先是就长期上去就把头发第一级的，刚才强调那就那个，那里全部那就是算年罗，那里最近给你这些事情的，啥都是跟那样继续是。
Set a good motivation. For the sake of all mothers and sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. For this, I will listen to the Lam Rim teachings and practice accordingly in order to benefit sentient beings.
Yeah, 的确，邻居。但是厂里这些，刚才心里的定的很多公布的给全部的，他的点的这些的，我是心里你来定的，很多公布的给全部的，他心里讲不上去，这个嘛的是的，对，也是吧？
心里讲吧，
你讲不上去，让你讲不到你，刚才嘛的是吧？你讲不了，让你讲不到去，看到，嘛的是，刚才这部门给我说的，他。心里对了，定的都很多公来，给全部的，你公布呢？那你们上面的就不是吧？这就是。
Today we are going to talk about the importance of cultivating special insight in dependence on karma abiding. So we are in which we are going to talk about we are unable to abandon afflictions by karma abiding alone. So we are unable to abandon afflictions. So if we cultivate special insight in dependence on karma abiding, then we are able to abandon afflictions together with their seeds.
他讲的心里过，我是心里对了，今年是为了这样的，哪里给切的来是哪里哇？他讲的你们这边很多的这样切的，很多的这样切的，他讲的心里对吧？也是我的，对吧？我是心里都有吧？他心里记了这样，心里对了，哪里切的来是呢？你们这边很多这边切的是，你们这边很多记了这样切的，很多这个对了对了，他讲的心里过吧，对了对了，这很多记不的是吧？我对了对了。很多马进呢，我定义的了，这公巴机吧，现在涨不了，这公巴机吧呢，也比你们安全啊。 예비 년무자 포토 말했어. 예비 년무지 포마 마투아서다 가지고 가봐 보지. 봐 보지 봐. 맞아. 신이 정보라 티네. 신이 정보 근데 단 예비 년무 포토 말했어. 예비 년무 포 뭐니나? 너 년무 봐 보지. 예비 년무는 가서 카우스 만 년무 계시 예비 년무 계시 와. 지난 년무 포스나 카우스 년무 좀 와. 오, 다 신이 정보지 간다. 예비 년무 저지 포 많이 봐이나. 년무 포한테 지금 내세 다 디스무도 와. 아니 예뻐도 간다. 한도 고. 예, 그래서 그래서 신이 줘야 가르쳐야 돼서 너무 스타일을 제반 좀 비치해도 항상 비치해도 한도 제. 그래서 한도 제치. 와. 와, 내가 한도 제가 이나 대시라는 이나서 내가 간다 너무 스타일을 제반 가르치다 스마 가르치는 거. 와.
啲能落啲食菜唔可以咗啦，所以比較能落啲食菜。
我的是
So indicating how to traverse the path in reliance upon shamatha generally. So then we need, here it says, one generates such concentration in the mind stream in order to generate special insight that destroy the mental afflictions. If special insight does not arise in reliance upon it, however much you familiarize yourself with concentration, you will not be able to eliminate even the mental afflictions of the desirium, let alone mental afflictions as a whole. That is why you must cultivate special insight. So here it talks about for what purpose we cultivate karma abiding. The purpose is to cultivate special insight. So because in order to cultivate special insight, we must cultivate special insight in dependence on karma abiding. So the purpose of cultivating karma abiding is to cultivate or is to accomplish special insight. What is the purpose of cultivating special insight? Is to destroy afflictions together with their seeds. So if we do not cultivate special insight, if we do not cultivate special insight by karma abiding alone, we are unable to abandon even the afflictions of the desirium here, as it says in the text. So when we say mental afflictions of the desiriums, and let alone mental afflictions as a whole. So mental afflictions as a whole refers to mental afflictions of three realms. So if we are unable to eliminate even the mental afflictions of the desirium, and then let alone mental afflictions as a whole. So by karma abiding alone, we are unable to abandon mental afflictions of the desirium, let alone mental afflictions as a whole. So we must, here it says in the text, that's why we must cultivate special insight.
다티 제가 누가 가르치나와 다티 올 망아서 당아서 신이 공부하더니 신이 공부하더니 이제 그래야 돼 간다 한도 집에 대치를 위해서 서로와 다 한도 집에 야 지금 그렇게 가르쳐 한도 집에 뭐가 가리어 그래서 다 한도 뭐가 마치 봐이나 그 내용 뭐 봐자 사비는 집에 봐야라 한도 되면은 신이 장바지 방도 말이스 이 방도 도와서다 한도 집에 치를 신이 공부하다 두 번. 그래서 다 된다. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that's why we need to cultivate a karma abiding. On top of that, we need to cultivate special insight. Because if we do not cultivate karma abiding, there's no way that we can cultivate special insight. So we need to cultivate karma abiding. So for what purpose? In order to cultivate special insight. Then again, what is the purpose of cultivating special insight? In order to eliminate afflictions together with their seeds.
So 다가 간다 가서 한도 공부여나 한도 때 간지 제스타 등에 있어 한도 좋아. 한도 다 한도 들랑 가서 니요. 예스. 아, 와. 가서 시바이나다 넘바이나다 다 참하게 간다. 한도 세웠다 구고. 신이 들라티네 한도데 매바이나 에 간다. 뇌시트서야 임바게 토토요 말. 좋아. 다 간다. 한도 들라다 너무 뇌조 보이. 비비비 랑지 비비 한도 지다. 너무 지사베 자원 보이가 얘네 비비 랑지 비비 한도 니. 예스. 비비 한도 니. 좋아. 또 담보 한도 니.
Since we need to cultivate special insight, then what are special insight? Then there are two types of special insight, as you say in the text. In fact, there are two: the special insight that progresses along mundane paths that eliminates manifest afflictions, and the special insight that progresses along supramundane paths that eliminates the seeds of afflictions from the root. So there are types of special insight. One that progresses along the mundane paths, and another one that progresses along the supramundane paths.
어디 다 한도 간다 이제 가서 녀문은 줘 보니 이제 때문에 이제 한도 저한테 근데 대고다 간리스나 이제 되게 한도 더 발라게 간다 네 봐도 신이 구요 다들 이제 되게 한도 될라 되네 다들 신이 될라 되네 되게 한도 돼야 돼 또 되게 가서 뭐지 저 같은 경우로 와 시바도 저기 간다 한도 돼야 돼 되게 와 이제 되게 한도 되네 어디서다 같은 지대비 되면 아주 한도대 다 단지 지역에서나 고마라 말아 봤다 시듯이 고마라 시는 봤다 싫어나니 좀 하세요 와 고마라 봤다 집바르 당가서 제발라 봤다 제발라 그냥 세통의 네마와라서 마음고 일단은 딱 고마 상대야 시와다 네 도지야 집바진 되니 야 통계 좋아 오마 유무는 좋아 그래서 안에 당고 가서 시가 대가라 이빠 진짜야 일단 대가라 ya sante ni bala shiwa tani ya sante tangbo la ma tu ra pa ta ta rimba ki sumre ba de chikwa chi ta ka wa o da de li shira ta ne ke de da de kanda o da de su de zuo de kanda ma kuma ya ni shi su de ya toya shini toya chi do kanda ni toya chi de da de su o su po shi zhen dan zhe ma su o de su de de ni ba su da shi lo ba ke ti me hong dong ma de shi da le o de yo ma wa
무시 디토하기 제도야 하동라 때네로 하동라 때네 무시 디토야 so So the former is a meditation with the coarse and peaceful aspects, viewing lower levels as coarser and higher ones as more peaceful. So this special insight, we need to cultivate special insight, right? And this special insight is needed by Buddhists and non-Buddhists in order to attain the actual dhyana, or actual concentration. So now, yeah. So and we need to attain the first dhyana, actual dhyana, independence on special insight. So therefore, we need to attain calm abiding, and independence on calm abiding, then we attain special insight. And independence on special insight, then we attain the actual dhyana or actual concentration. So, for non-Buddhists, then independence on calm abiding, then they attain, they developed the special insight that progresses along the mundane paths. So this special insight that progresses along the mundane paths. So how do they do such special insight? How do they cultivate such special insight? Is by viewing lower levels as coarser and higher ones as more peaceful. So this is the way how they cultivate the special insight. So viewing lower levels as coarser and higher ones as more peaceful, for example, so in order to progress to higher levels, for example, they look at the coarseness aspect in desirium. For example, there are short lifespan, and there are many sicknesses. So these are the coarse aspects in desiriums. And then they look at the peaceful aspect or peacefulness in higher realms, such as those in form realms. So this is how they view the lower levels as coarser and higher ones as more peaceful. So similarly, if they want to proceed to higher levels, so once they attain the first concentration or first dhyana, if they want to proceed to second dhyana, second concentration, then they look at the coarse aspect in the first dhyana, and then they look at the peaceful aspect in second dhyana or second concentration.
아마 이 고고를 다 방금 뒤에 공부 와 이렇게 고고를 그럼 나도 남바이나 그때 나도 세월에 나도 이 친구들 차고 내지 못해서 주로 나서 뭐 이또 간사게 다음에 내지 못해서 나서 가지고 니 공부나 공부라 때문에 가다 나도 또 와. 이 토르데 나도 산 나가니 이비시네 이래도 내도세 이 토잖아 이 냥자배 말이야 사대 니바 소바 시바들이야 토야치도 그래서 예바 구요 요 구고 누구 진짜 가서나 산대 당고 내도지 디비 야 간다 내지 못하고 뒤로 또비 다음에 또비 들리도 빌라티네 코알에 도투고 코알에 도투고를 잡아줘
선생님 담배 예도기
어떤 company 도지 디비 나 다음에 무슨 또비 이시 예시 못하고 뒤로 또비 이시 이 여러와 오 딜라티네 야 간다 다지도 뭐도 뭐 코알에 도투고 뭐 빠르게 이게야 또비 양식이 판에 두다고 그래서 말시바이나
something 의시
와 상대적으로 좀 봐기 돼 수면 받아 뉴스들이 두고 해요 말이야 예바도 두 가지고 말했어
예도 지불라 되네
오 얘도 예토나 비교를 했어
So for non-Buddhists, in order for them to progress to higher levels, for example, from the first dhyana to second dhyana to third dhyana to fourth dhyana, then these fourth concentrations or four dhyanas are included in the form realms. And then from form realms, in order to progress to formless realms, then again, they depends on this special insight that progresses along the mundane path. Then they progress to the highest of the formless realms, which is nothingness, the level called nothingness. So that is the special insight that progresses along mundane paths that eliminates manifest afflictions cultivated by non-Buddhists. So, however, for Buddhists, then we need to cultivate the special insight that progresses along supramundane paths, eliminates the seeds of afflictions from the root. So, how do they cultivate the special insight that progresses along the supramundane path? Is by view, by meditating on the view with the 16 aspects, impermanence and so forth, of the Four Noble Truths. So the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, such as impermanence. So they need, as a Buddhist, we need to cultivate this special insight that progresses along the supramundane path. So when we say we attain calm abiding, when we attain calm abiding, we also attain the preliminary stage of the first dhyana. So in dependence on this preliminary or preparatory stage of first dhyana, then we can cultivate this special insight that progresses along the mundane path that eliminates the seeds of afflictions from the root, and eventually we will be free from samsara. So there is no need to so there is, in order to cultivate special insight that progresses along the supramundane path, the actual dhyana is not necessary. So we can, as a Buddhist, then we can cultivate the special insight that progresses along supramundane paths in dependence on the preliminary stage of first dhyana.
오 대시수장아도 나 넘버 넘버이나 다 상대 담비기 내도 토르디 신이 토르 거와 다 신이 내 보고 그러와
선생님 담은 이도로.
선 담비 내도 토르디 신이 토르 그러와 안 담비 내도 토르디 신이 토르 거래 그 신이 토르 와서다 근데 신이 이들라 비네 안다 안다 내도 지비 한도 내도 지비 한도 아다 그래서 그 다음에 와서 봐 근데 이 시기 소라 비네 간다 다치 그 바다 고알에 토투고 와 고알에 토투고 이거 와서 봐 그 싫어 벌써 그림바 이게 신이 그 바래 신이 일반적으로 하면 있어 살레 담보 미스터자 다 님바미 크라니 히람 베츠체 니바타자나 somba 크라니 히라 야 젤리 디블라타 안타 투도 님바 너로 가다 아 그래서 그거로 와 나가서 남바이나 가다 니바도 그래서 니바 로 뭐야 말 로 뭐가 이제 가는 산데 담보 내도 이도 가자게 한도 지열에 가다 그 한도 저다 때네 가다 그래서 디지털 거 다게 그 공부하는 거 하나
그래서 담에 이
가서 그 다음에 공부하는 거 오 들었더니 얘 간다 공부하는 거 뭐하래 와
Yeah, Yeah, so for non-Buddhists, by cultivating special insight that progresses along the mundane paths, then they progress from lower levels to higher levels, such as from the first dhyana to second dhyana, to third dhyana, fourth dhyana, then to higher levels that is included in the formless realm. So, however, for Buddhists, one must it is not a must for one to progress along those paths. So but rather, as a Buddhist, we cultivate we cultivate the special insight in dependence on the preliminary stage of the first dhyana. So, there are two different things. One is preliminary stage of first dhyana, then there is an actual first dhyana. So, for non-Buddhists, they attain this preliminary stage. So, preliminary stage of the first dhyana is simultaneous with achievements of calm abiding. So when you achieve calm abiding, you also achieve the preliminary stage of the first dhyana at the same time or simultaneously. So for non-Buddhists, independence on this preliminary stage of the first dhyana, then they proceed to higher levels, to the actual first dhyana, to the actual second dhyana, third dhyana, etc. So, however, for Buddhists, they do not proceed in this way. So instead of cultivating special insight that progresses along the mundane paths, Buddhists they cultivate special insight that progresses along the supramundane paths. So how do they cultivate this special insight that progress on the supramundane paths? In dependence on the preliminary stage of the first dhyana. So in dependence on this preliminary stage of first dhyana, which is come abiding, then they generate or they cultivate the special insight meditating on the selflessness of person that is included in the preliminary state. So they cultivate special insight, meditating on the selflessness of person that is included in the preliminary stage. And independence on this special insight, meditating on selflessness of person that is included in the preliminary stage, then they eventually they attain arhatship, and at the same time they are free from samsara.
다시 올라 되더라고. 그래서 올라 간다. 신이 되시로 받아 나한테 인정 받는 밑에 나한테 신이 있으시고 나한테 신이 어떤 맛이야? 당가도 신이 돼 간다. 다시로 봐이나다. 남바이나다. 간다. 이렇게 나한테 쓰기 시작된다. 신이 다시 예스 어떤 맛이야? 와.
So that being so, the shamatha explained above is required as the basis for eliminating afflictions for both non-Buddhist and Buddhist yogis. So shamatha is commonly required. Yeah, non-Buddhist and Buddhist yogis are commonly they commonly requires the achievement of shamatha in order to eliminate afflictions or progress along the paths.
간다 신이 돼 간다 시로 봐나지 너무 먼저 와야기 시 차고래. 간다 시다 나지 나한테 시다 나지 나한테 티발라 아니 봐도 가서 신이 돼. 다 매도 물어 차. 다 매도 물어 차. 근데 신이 될라 되는데 다 너무 먼저 와. 와야기 다 니가 지도래. 그거 지도란 되나도. 다 남바이나 간다. 다 신이 되게 보고 그래서 와. 다 남바 니가 보고 그래. 간다. 신나 니가 그 배난 줘 봐나지 간다 너무 고아라. 너무 왼쪽 고아이나다. 너무 사베도 제가 고아이나다. 니가 간다 니가 이 그 기자들 그랬어. 와. 이 그랬어. 신나 니가 또 담보 되시고 와.
It is for everyone. So non-Buddhists will eliminate manifest afflictions by cultivating the path with coarse and peaceful aspects, and Buddhists who eliminate afflictions from the root by meditating on the meaning of selflessness. So it is for everyone. So everyone refers to non-Buddhists and Buddhists. So we both of us, we need to cultivate calm abiding. And based on this calm abiding, they cultivate the special insight that eliminates the manifest afflictions. So how do they cultivate the special insight? Which is by cultivating the paths with coarse and peaceful aspects. So that's cultivating the special insight, having the aspects of coarseness and peacefulness. And then Buddhists, we need calm abiding also. So we need to achieve calm abiding, and then in dependence on calm abiding, we cultivate the special insight that eliminates afflictions from the root. How do they cultivate the special insight? By meditating on the meaning of selflessness. So calm abiding are common basis. Yeah, is a common basis for non-Buddhists and Buddhists in order to eliminate afflictions.
다 간다 신이 된 가서 신나는 거를 간다로와 내조 번나지 간다牛 공화라 이거 되니 뭐 비치고 그거 맞지 뭐 지주니지 맞지 내조 봐 뭐 지주니게 내조 봐 간디지네 다 간다 신이 된 무슨 것도 모르겠어 그거 뭐 지주니 이 tipo 지인지 두고 맞은 거 특히 봐야 강화다 버린 게 맞는 게 그러와 강화다 버린 게 봐 간디지 베네 내조 봐나 지금 뭐 나리 지니까 다 버린 지도 내조 봐 나리 지 간디지 봐이나 다 신이 된 세우리 해서 우리 등에 빠지서 보고 해서 난조 봐 그거 우리가 시작하고 그래서 다 데리고
So not only that, so not only non-Buddhists and Buddhists need to accomplish shamatha, and then but any Mahayana or Hinayana yogi must accomplish that concentration. So that concentration refers to shamatha or calm abiding. So not only that non-Buddhists and Buddhists need it, Mahayana or Hinayana yogi, we need that concentration, which is shamatha as well. As for Mahayanis, then Mahayanis, all yogis of the vehicles of both the perfections and mantra must accomplish that shamatha. In other words, Mahayana Paramitayana and Mahayana Mantrayana. So we need to cultivate calm abiding as well. So calm abiding or shamatha is the common basis that is required for Buddhists and non-Buddhists as well. Non-Buddhists, Mahayana, Hinayana, Mahayana, Mantrayana, Mahayana, Parimitayana. So all of us, we need that calm abiding as basis.
다디 올 가르치고 있어 다디 올 데리다 당어서 다음에 또 한도 됐다 매도 물어 매도 물어 다음에 또 한도 땅에 뭐 그걸 넘어 사대가 다음에 또 한도 매도 물어 예스터데 매도 물어 이게 되시는 거는 와
So for Buddhists, it is not unacceptable to lack the former, So for Buddhists, it is not unacceptable to lack the former of those two special insights, but it is unacceptable to lack the later special insight that realizes selflessness.
넘어 사대가 들려고 넘어 사대가 간다 한도 니지 나네 나마 매도 물어 말이에세 나 간다 이비 란티 지빌 한도 디 매도 물어 말이에세 이 매딩에 봐도 들랑 매도 물어 게 말이에세 기타는 네가 띵게 요리 물어 내가 띵게 간다 야 네가 요리 요러
Namasangi
와 남산이 요리 요러 이나 매도 물어 말이에세 다 띵게 봐이 매나페 가마야 누가 민저 니무 봐야 민저 되게 말이에세 와 매도 물어 말이에세 되게 야 심마 다음에도 빌 한도들 땅만에 매도 모아 이나레스 다음에도 빌 한도들 땅 넘발라 매도 모아 레스 때문에나 땅아서 고안에 두고 뭐 다음에 간다다티 누가 두고 말레스 뭐다 되레스 그런다 좋아 다 한도 니기 너니 한도 니기는 니빌 한도들 다 매도 모아 내가 보고 레스 니기는 빌 한도들 지기는 니빌 한도들 매도 모아 레스 다들어 와 인체봐
So this sentence talks about special insight that realizes selflessness. It's indispensable for Buddhists. And among the two special, as we mentioned just now, there are two types of special insights, right? One is the special insights that progresses along the mundane paths, and special insight that progresses along the supramundane paths. The special insight that progresses on the supramundane paths is by cultivating a special insight that realizes selflessness or the meaning of selflessness. So the second one is indispensable for Buddhists, and the first one is not indispensable for Buddhists. So that means whether you cultivate this special insight or not is whether you cultivate it or not is okay. However, the second one you must cultivate it. So even though we say that for Buddhists it is not indispensable to cultivate the special insight and progress along the mundane paths. However, it doesn't mean that there are no Buddhists at all who cultivate the special insight and progress along the mundane paths. There are Buddhists who cultivate the special insight that progress along the mundane paths. However, in order to eliminate afflictions together with their seeds from the root. And in order to be free from samsara, one must cultivate a second special insight, which is the special insight that realizes selflessness.
Sante Nimbania, Nimba Inchita, Sante, Ambo Niba Somba, Sume, Chamania, it's Samaki Shinit Matoba Inaya, Mares. That you may be Jessica, this Sante Tambo, Kinish Dibi, Inedo, Cosare della Tini, the Ondo Gogo, Moto Gombi, the Qua, the Yipon Cesare, the Qua to the Tabaco, Esigon. But that nearby the Mother Sante Tambo, Yedo Dibi, Sante Tambi, Dibi Kanda Shinich Tosarwa. 예도지 디비신이 토사로와 뭐다 된디 신이 토사와서다 그 산디 담에 예도지 디비신이 토사와서다 아 데라 데니 에 간다 한도 고니 에 간다 고알에 또 그다지 kumbato 그래 파도 산디 님비 이게 산디 신이 기빈 신이 그 상황 리퍼들이 내가 두고 요 말이에요 이봐 와 숨에 받으리 봐 예뻐도 두고 요 말이에요
In fact, if in the text it says, in fact, if you attain the shamatha explained above that is included in the preliminary success stage of the first dhyana, then you can attain, in reliance upon it, the liberation that is freedom from all bonds of secular existence by cultivating special insight, even without having achieved the shamatha of higher form realm, concentrations of formlessness. So here, when we say shamatha that is included in the preliminary assess stage of the first dhyana. So another word for this preliminary assess stage of the first dhyana is preliminary stage of the first dhyana or preparatory stage of the first dhyana. So if you attain the shamatha that is included in the preliminary stage of the first dhyana, that is referring to the time when we first attain calm abiding. So when we first attain calm abiding, we attain calm abiding that is included in the preliminary stage of the first dhyana. So, and then in dependence on such calm abiding or first calm abiding of shamatha, then we can cultivate the special insight. Then in dependence on the special insight, then one can achieve a liberations that is freedom from all bonds of secular existence. So in order to cultivate the special insight that frees us from all bonds of secular existence, these shamatha of higher realms, such as the calm abiding that is included in the second dhyana, calm abiding that is included in the third dhyana, is not needed, is not necessary. So, so in dependence on this calm abiding that is included in the preliminary stage of the first dhyana, we can cultivate special insight that frees us from all bonds of secular existence.
店面面积的，那你们感觉啊，也是，那这这个嘛，都基本都同样的，对吧？那店面面积的，你们感觉我投个的呢，我投个是投嘛也是，我投是投嘛也是，那对了对了，已经拿到对了对了，是吧？他把投投嘛，过来投嘛也是，呀，商店里人把人多的，那就说明了需要的，商店的西商当不那个什么习惯的话，这样子的，那说明了这个需要的。或者能看到那些的这样的，这是需要的。但实际里啊，你我的我我们不是，也实际你我光了，他从那那是没有，那是没了嘛，这个公方嘛，
实际啲有冇地幫到有嘛咧？
嘛，这个嘛，他第二面也把第二面面就是公方的，也是我们说，哎，你们就要过呢，刚才是这个谁头发是谁头发，也是这个谁头的是，头的应该当好的头嘛的，他不头嘛，我你们公嘛的时候，我到底。但你这边，我对了，今天，那你这边好多是刚刚，你这边好多是话，那刚才我们了，把等你眼中给对吧？我需要等你啊。
Yeah. So on the other hand, if you do not realize the nature of selflessness and fail to meditate on it, you will not free yourself from cyclic existence, even if you eliminate all manifest afflictions to nothingness, and thus attain the minds of the peak of cyclic existence by means of the shamatha explained above and the mundane special insight dependent on it. So one thing that I need to correct is, just like I said, the highest of the formless realms is nothingness, right? Is not. Nothingness is the third level, and the highest level in formless realm is peak of peak of the existence. So form realm, there are four levels. Four levels: first dhyana, second dhyana, third dhyana, and fourth dhyana. And then in formless realm, again, there are four levels as well. So the four levels are infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and peak of existence. I repeat, infinite, infinite space. Second, infinite consciousness. The third one is nothingness, and the fourth one is peak of existence. Then here it says, so if you do not realize the nature of selflessness and fail to meditate on it, then means that independence on the calm abiding, if you instead of cultivating the special insight that progresses along the supramundane paths, if you were to choose to cultivate special insight that progresses along the mundane paths by viewing the coarseness and the peacefulness, then you will not free yourself from secular existence, even if you eliminate all manifest afflictions up to nothingness. So meaning you can abandon those manifest afflictions to nothingness, which is the level in formless realm. In formless realm, so you can even eliminate these manifest afflictions up to nothingness, and you achieve the minds of the peak of existence. But in dependence on the special insight that progresses along the mundane paths, you are unable to eliminate the manifest afflictions of peak of existence. You are unable to abandon the manifest afflictions of peak of existence. Since you're unable to abandon these manifest afflictions, this highest level, you're unable to be free yourself from cycle existence. You're unable to attain arhatship.
我等你去对刚才的话的，他刚才学过的时候，他刚才你是做干什么？你读的现在就是，这是这个先做的，他可能他把他吃啊，你也上来的多啊，我做啥的？那学了刚才，那平常我就觉得，忙不进嘛，因为是嘛娘我干了，也他把做么的时候呢，这老大就工作时候呢，这娘我的见着的，他们有的是嘛，娘的过来，他是不是？
佢先得點有冇永久話定做啲幫襯咯？
我研究过，但你们朋友嘛，是吧？
永久話啲幫襯。
研究的，是吧？
沒錯。
那就是被，因为去了不是看到他把做啥的，对被弄把小的，看到我给读了，他看到是吧？我们这个给读了，你学会了，当然是什么娘我干了，我也是做了是吧？啊，做的这工作上呢，我娘我的建筑工作电话给他娘我的建筑给他们用了，也是吧？是吧？那工作时候的话是对，我娘我接的就，一定要强了，工作的，都加油了，工作是吧？我说民众嘛接的就是吧，民众接的就是吧？
So when those who choose to cultivate special insight that progresses along the mundane paths in dependence on the karma abiding, so when they achieve the minds of peak of cycle existence, so because they are able to abandon manifest afflictions up to nothingness and achieve the minds of peak cycle existence, right? But they are unable to abandon the manifest afflictions of peak of cycle existence. So because of which they are unable to free themselves from samsara, they are unable to become arhat. So however, those who achieve the minds of peak of cycle existence, they think they have already achieved liberations. So they think that they are already achieved liberations, and then they can stay in that mental states for a very long time. So, and then even though they have even though they have eliminated manifest afflictions up to nothingness, but it doesn't mean that they have abandoned afflictions. So since they have not abandoned afflictions, so when anger when anger manifests, so when anger manifests, then that becomes the main cause for them to be born in lower realms. So yeah, so uh, so that is why even though if you achieve the minds of peak of cycle existence, then it doesn't mean that you have already freed from samsara.
그렇게가 원래 와요 같은 경우도 저런 뭐지 간다 마시지 담바래 저런 뭐지 대화를 보고래 와 다시 보는 주가 되는데 엔지니어 다음에 마토베 마보나 이제 장바지 있다 간다 이제 한도 지기 지안는 게 받다 근데 단지 보고 그래스 이문에 보고 그래 되나 근데 원래 와요 같은 게 지지 대화를 그래 근데 취지 그래 시쇼비다 또 뜨고 담바스다 간다 이제 나오네 간다 그 게임 나라티니 그거 Sisi padan dungu yores, sisi pa sisi ki se kawa padan dungu yore ina, dunga rishi pi dunga ka mungu tsu ngenjo, dunga yores, ko tu yore ina, laya yanja jia yores, laya yanja jia yores.
Dungi yang bong yo.
Oh, dungi bong yo wa.
Mong yo.
Oh, yores. Bong ya, laya rishi pi bong ma to, ngenjo bong ma to, ding de bong su da, laya yanja jia yores. Yo wa sunza, santi jingi jo ma, wala tsi tiki santi jingi jo ma to ja, 이주물에 저 있어야 다 간다 맞아 다 넘버다 보이나 간다 산디 지내도 고 얘도 그 내시 마토 봐이나 내시 마토 봐이나 얘도 내가 깨네 그 간다 타바도야 다 저기 바토야 이거리 혹시 이러고 다 간다 시발 호바 지인스 타마치 되래 뭐 시발 또 두게 그래서 뭐 산디 지내도 나 내도 이게 비시네 도자로 이 도자디 인증이 지내지 마토나 예요 말이스 내시 마토나 내도 될라 깨네
So, as praise of the one worthy of praise says, so to support this point. On the other hand, if you do not realize the nature of selflessness and fail to meditate on it, you will not free yourself from secular existence, even if you eliminate all manifest afflictions up to nothingness, and thus attain the mind of peak of secular existence by means of the shamatha explained above, and the mundane special insight dependent on it. So these quotations from Praise of the One Worthy of Praise says, beings who fail to turn to your Dharma, who are blinded by their ignorance, having gone to the peak of existence, maintain existence and suffer again. So this means that this says that if you do not develop the special insight, the supra-mundane special insight that realizes the meaning of selflessness, then even if you have gone to the peak of existence, you maintain existence and suffer again means that you're still in samsara. You do not free yourself from samsara. You're still in samsara, though you have abandoned manifest afflictions and certain sufferings. But since you're still in samsara, then when and your afflictions are not abandoned yet. So when afflictions manifest, then you will suffer again. The followers of your teachings who do not gain the basis of meditative civilization still turn away from existence while under the gaze of Mara's eyes. Followers of your teachings who do not gain the basis of meditative civilization. So the basis of meditative civilization refers to the actual dhyana. So even though they do not, even though Buddhists, for example, even though they do not achieve the actual dhyana. However, in dependence on the preliminary stage of the first dhyana, they cultivate supramundane special insight by viewing the 16 aspects of Four Noble Truths and etc. that realizes the meaning of selflessness, then they still turn away from existence, means that they can free themselves from existence in dependence on the supramundane special insight that is based on the preliminary stage of the first jhana.
간다 신이 제고 예 스텔라티니 신이 제고 지금 말해 신이 제고래 그 제고래 그 신이 지야겠다 보마 내가 보고도 그 길이 노림이 그날 딱 간다 지리니까 지와 지금 예스 길인 거 좋아
길이 이가서 가리기리 신이
뭐 대가서 신이 제고 봐 난저 라메지 간다 무슨 양례 제와라 지야 제도지 림발이야 림발 양례 지는 도야라 난 영무스 봉알라 림발의 신이 고리겠어 다 신이 가봐 가와도 지금 딱 간다 게리다 도리니 지간 딱 간다 지리지 가서 딱 간다 지인 상로
신이 되기게
신이 지그리에서 이나 가서 그 지리지 또 받지 와라 내 받을 신이 뭐야 야 메이서디
가리 또 받지야라
신이 지리지 또 받지 와라 이 지리지 또 받지 와라 내 받을 신이 때문에 인사 말게 와 딱 간다 지인 상로 보던 가서 지리지 가서 지그리에서 와 게린 가서 지그리 됐어 와 이거 가서 좋으라고
你把这신이 고마워 이슬라 삼리 담에 니도 신이
그다음 뭐 제리 또 받지 와라 제리 또 받지 와라 내 받다 간다 신이가 때문에 무슨 일이 좀 그림 더 와 그냥 이나야 딱 간다 가서 지엔상라고 제리 가서 지금 예수 좀 와.
It follows that with respect to High Sukha Tantra too, even though such a yogi does not develop shamatha and special insight by focusing on the variety of samsaric states. So special insight by focusing on the variety of samsaric states. 코하게 진예바 미베 하동세데 진예베 하동로. Yeah. So this special insight by focusing on the variety of samsaric states refers to the mundane special insight. So this refer to mundane special insight. So even though such a yogi does not develop shamatha and such special insight, he still needs to cultivate shamatha. And the point where shamatha arises is on the generation stage. So some texts says that some texts say that in order to generate realizations of generation stage, firm abiding is not necessary. However, the point where shamatha, however, in order to eliminate afflictions, the point where shamatha arises, then it will be on the generation stage.
당아도 서이 숨바들 세지 숨바들 와. 다 숨바들 가르시오스나. 다 레담보 아니지 제반에 살히스 가서 와. 니데밀랑 디스 니데밀랑 디스 때와다 간다 레담보 아니지 제반. 그때 올 말이 와.
동다.
와.
나서 양게 되서는 사지디.
사지디. 빨리 와. 그래서 숨바들 되게 간다들이 니데밀랑 디스 니데밀랑 또 디스들라. 다 간다 레담보 아니지 제반에 살히 기초에서 디키고 레담보 아니지.
Yeah, so in order to eliminate afflictions, and one still need to cultivate calm abiding of shamatha, right? And the point where calm abiding arises, then it will be on the generation stage. So next outline is indicating how to traverse the mundane path in particular.
다 이지 마토비 빠네 로 일라시비 레 담보아 세니 고바네 존데 다 이지 마토비 빠네 일라시비 레 담보아 이지 토네 니무노조 디비 치니 수도리 이지 고바네 다 니무노조 레 담보아 예살이 쉐버레스 다 예살이 쉐데레 로
이지 마토바이네 디 신이 마토바르베
그다 이지 마토네 신이 도모로
이지 마토바이네 디 가서 디 레 담보바이나 이지 레 담보바이나
일라시비 레 담보 토르디 간다 신이 토르와 니도 일라시비 레 담보와 시와 이 토르디 신이 토르와 신이 토르고 다 신이 토르고 된 제바셔 이제 또 너무 나중에 신이 수도리 비지에서 지자고와 Deni cheba shibudwa. Yudo ila shibile dambu wada, ila shibi, wa iji mato banda ila shibile dambu. Mato sini guban, dan sini guban mejere ngadon di biserwa, biserwa. Sini guban mazo biserwa. ila shibi, shine topada, dan nido ila shibile dambu wa titonwa. Nido ila shibile dambu wa tonwa. Dan nido ila shibile dambu wa tokudina, sini sudori biji tokusan deka de toyo mare. De toyo mare. Ini ngashi yorwa. Dambu nido 뭐 신이 토마 토르데 니도 일하시 밀레다고 니도 신이 장비 디베 니도 토르 신이 장비 디베 니도 토르 그래서 와나 신이 소소리 비지스와 신이 소소리 비지 뭐데 가다 한도 디베 니도라 찌바 찌기만 와 찌바 찌기로 차고 신이 저요 와 어디니 찌바 찌기로 해서
So here, Sarvaka levels explains that from the ninth mental state on, you are a beginner in attention until you achieve attentions. So that means from the ninth mental state onward, there is still in the desarium. So from ninth mental state onward until you achieve the attentions. So when you achieve attentions, then you are a beginner in attentions. So you are a beginner in attentions. That means you are a beginner in attention. 이라 집에 내 담보와다 신의 토바디 뒤냐면 알죠.
근데 지들 가도 지나고 지스 고 감도와 인도사데. 세 고반 신이 고반에 선데 20 마토 반에서 20 마토 반에 진수도리 비제 마토지 반으로. 진수도리 비제 마토 반에 다 일에 신의 담보와래. 그래서 그래도 이 담보와래. 그래서 다 진수도리 비제 폰에서 와. 뭐 나죠 진수도리 비제 고반에 너무 나죠 그래 담보. 니 제바시 그래서
Yeah. So here it might be difficult to understand. So I'm trying to explain here is, here Sravaka levels explain that from the ninth mental state on, then you are a beginner in attentions until you achieve attentions. So the attentions here refers to the attentions that knows the characteristics. So later I will talk about this again. So that means when you achieve calm abiding, then you become a beginner in attentions. Then you achieve how's a preliminary stage of the first dhyana that is included in calm abiding alone. I repeat, when we first attain calm abiding, we at the same time then we become the beginner in attentions. We attain a preliminary stage of first concentration that is included in calm abiding alone. So when we attain this, then we are beginner in attentions. We attain calm abiding. Then we attain a preliminary stage of the first dhyana that is included in calm abiding alone. So all these are simultaneous. Yeah, they are achieved simultaneously. So then in dependence on these, then we attain preliminary stage that purifies afflictions. That the first of the preliminary stage that purifies afflictions is attention that knows the characters. So here it says, and you are a beginner in purifying afflictions if you have achieved attentions. So the attentions here refer to attentions that knows the characteristics. So if you have achieved attentions, then you become a beginner in purifying afflictions. So out of desire to purify mental afflictions, then cultivate the attention that knows the characteristics. So here, when you explain, Saraka levels explains that from the ninth mental state on, then when you achieve calm abiding, at the same time, you become a beginner in attention. You achieve preliminary stage of the first dhyana that is included in pure or calm abiding alone. Sorry, that is included in calm abiding alone. So all these are achieved simultaneously. And then you are a beginner in purifying afflictions if you have achieved attention. So when you first become the beginner, so after you become the beginner in attentions, then on top of this, then you become a beginner in purifying afflictions. That is preliminary stage that purifies affliction. And the first stage of so the first level of this preliminary stage, purifying afflictions, is attention that knows the characteristics. So if you have achieved the attention that knows the characteristics, then you become a beginner in purifying afflictions. Then yung mong nam yung yin ye to ang bo ro.
이제 죽으는 방법이 재미 수도도 이제 그래서 안다 선담이 내도 일하시면 당부 와서 좋아 선담이 내도 일하시면 당부 와서 기내 장비기 대비 다 내도 되게 계시고 나도 기내 당 토비가 와 선담보니야 기내 당부 토비가 다 내도 일하시면 당부 와 근데 장비기 기내 장비기 때문에도 투여로 봐도 이제 한도지 때문에 기내에서 저기 도요 말이 한도지 때문에 기내 도요 말 와
한동기 TV.
와 한도지 때문에 기내 도요 말 가다 내도 집이 가다 배신이 도로 걸어와 내도 이래 이래 타고 가다 되게 괜히 쳐버시고 다 괜히 쳐버 마시고 다 진이 수도리 이제 가서 이제 두시오 당고 들어 이제 두시오 당고 진이 수도리 이제 토발라 당고 내도 이래 이래 당고 또 토발 문도
데 당보 같을 때네 이네 데 야 집에 좀
이제 지나 와 진이 수도리 이제 가서 쥐어받친 게 저래 쥐어받친 게 와.
지금
지지지를 받게 얘도 일하시네 당보도 신이 나를 좋아 이 신이 세지지 버와 이 가가는 와
So to put this in a simple way is when you achieve calm abiding, then you become a beginner in attention. Then in dependence on this beginner in attention, then you achieve the attention that knows the characteristics. So attention that knows the characteristics, then when we say attention that knows the characteristics, so this is one of the six attentions. This is one of the six attentions, and then this is the first one, attention that knows the characteristics. There are six attentions. So one must first become a beginner in attention. In dependence on this beginner in attentions, then one achieve the first of the six attentions, which is attention that knows the characteristics. So so when we first attain calm abiding, that is beginner in attentions, it is just a pure calm abiding. It is not a calm abiding that is included in special insight. So then, in dependence on this beginner in attentions, then we achieve the attention that knows the characteristics. So these six attentions are the analyzing awareness, analyzing cognitions, analyzing cognitions, or they are analytical meditations. So in dependence on this beginner in attentions, then one attains attention that knows the characteristics. That means one have to first attain the beginner in attentions, then attain the attention that knows the characteristics, which is first of the six attentions.
저도 되고 제가 시작을 영문난주 비내도 슬로우기 영문난주 비내도 막 이어오지 다 친구들도 비지네다 요한테 이제 뭐 무시하고
영문난주
그거 해요 영문난주 비내도 막 이어 시오지 친구들도 비지네 요한테 이게 좋대 영문난주 비내도 비와
영문난주 인예도 당 영문난주 예 담보 와이네 디 지단이나 지가
뭐다 그거로 봐 얘도 일하시면 내 당부 와서 나도
일하 집에 내 담보 와로 이네 영문남종 예 담보 와
영문난주 내도 시작다 영문난주 내도 시작 영문난주 내도 시 들마 시오데 이게 조시오 이게 조 영문난주 내도 되라 다 친구들이 비지네 이게 조시고요 와 어디 이게 조다 이게 조고도 막 예당 수리 요스나 이신다고도 영문난주 내도 되라 니 샤바지 니 가르잖아 내도 일하시면 돼 당보다 니모 나도 되도 니로와 니래 다 내도 일하시면 돼 당보다 가서 배 통만 가서 산대지 비니 토바다 비니 토바다 Nedo toba, Gongsi Sheba toba, Gongjulo toba, Chiwa,
讲得严格，
Gongsi Sheba, Nedo toba, Ine toba,
你都拖把，
Ine toba,
是你拖把，
Gongjulo toba, Gongjulo toba,
公中一路，
Ine toba, Deshi de Dinyari Takaba,
公司去些吧，
Gongsi Sheba toba, Dinya, Deshi,
嗯，
Deshi de Dinya. That Dinya, so take as a party, she need the Karasana, Nedo Ila, she let over Kasna, that she need Jambi Divinedo, did it. Kumate, Jambi Divinedo.
嗯，
그래서 내도지 뒤에 한도도 동의하고 그 동의하고
啊，是你一对比，是你一对比，他们得拖油嘛，
그거 말 이제 장비 뒤에 내도 세대 도가
得开始拖油嘛，是你一对，
내도지 뒤에 한도 동의하고 내도지 뒤에 한도 여러
嗯，
어디 동의하고但是你 장비 뒤에 내도 동의
你当今的拉动的对比是你拖油嘛，对不对？
동의
是你的拉动的对比是你的拖油嘛的当，你都的对比拉动的拖油嘛的是的存在基本上，
이게 맞아 내도지 뒤에 신이
你都的对比拉动，
내도지 뒤에 한도 동의하고
嗯
동의
嗯
말해
嗯嗯，啊，这第一了，这边你谈不话，你拖比高啦，因为是你都的对比拉动的拖油嘛的，
신이 장비 뒤에 신이 내도지 동의 니 장비 뒤에 내도 이거 신이 담보를 그러 니 장비 뒤에
是你讲吧的吧，
因为现在讲不一定，那年多是多。
嗯。甚至他们年度那定义有的话，伊拉这边你看不话堂，我们当中的年度定义有个且，因为我们当中的年度那的样样是做，
我的
嗯嗯，yeah. So when we talk about this preliminary of first dhyana, so it can be divided into two. Preliminary stage of the first dhyana can be divided into two. The first one is beginner in attention, and preliminary stage that purifies afflictions. Preliminary stage that purifies afflictions. So there are two divisions, right? So the first one, beginner in tensions, refers to the time when you first attain calm abiding. So when you first attain calm abiding, when you attain preliminary stage, when you attain awareness arisen from meditation, and when you attain consciousness of higher levels. These are simultaneous. Achievements of these four are simultaneous. Repeat. When you attain calm abiding, when you attain preliminary stage, when you attain awareness arisen from meditation, and when you attain consciousness of higher level, when you attain these four, these four are simultaneous. When you attain these four are simultaneous. And when you are at this stage, as a beginner in attentions, at that time, you haven't achieved special insight that is included in the preliminary stage. Yeah, so you're clear, right? Referring to the first division, then at this point, you haven't achieved special insight that is included in the preliminary stage. Then the second division that I mentioned just now is preliminary stage that purifies afflictions, right? Then this preliminary stage that purifies afflictions can be further divided into 6 attentions. These 6 attentions, the first one is attention that knows the characteristics.
而且我们的学问当俺是你说的学不的来帮忙的吧，一旦是他上帝的时候，没就让马学是话，他上帝的名做的也是，你可以学会吧？那你们样就是刘大公，上帝的时候没就让马学的上帝的名做的也是，他等于年度的了，他讲的一些主席的，我们城里所做的比一些，有的也是呢，这个导播的结果，他讲的城里所做的比一些年度一些主席的不能当不的话。这个说的比较主能当不的是吧？那年度娱乐系列当不是要的，马些是话对年度娱乐系列当不，是吧？当不的头是吧？年度娱乐系列当不，他呢，当然这个，那就马些算的年度一些东西，他妈城里所的比一些的人，他妈城里所的比一些的也是老的，是吧？那年度的这边是他妈结完了，城里所的比一些的，那天主要记录也是我的，那这我的来过了，头发来过了。 다들 좋아지게 되나 다 말해서 좋아. 맞아. 얘도 이게 세 토마 지야도 가르스나 신이수도리 비게 되면서 말해서. 그 소리에서는 아 얘도 이라 싶네 담고 왔어. 선담 얘도 이라 싶네 담고 왔디레스.
선생님 담은 얘도
이라 싶네 담고 와.
음,
선담 얘도 이라 싶네 담고 왔디레스. 토마 지야 좋아. 토마 뒤 들어와. 어디에마다 신이수도리 비게 찍어요 말. 와. 어디에서 와. 다들 근데 얘도 이게 세 토마 저 신이수도리 이게 미는 거는 좋아지는 거지. 다다 먼저 가서 뒤 걔네들 시고로 와. 이게 도시비 토마 진수를 이제 임배에서 놔. 근데 이제 도시비 토마들에 마도 맞아 이제 제시오디 토마 잡고요. 이제 제시오디 토마 잡고요. 이제 제시오디 토마 내도 일하시게 담보 와서 뒤하고.
얘는 그 담보디 가는
담보 내도 일하시게 담보 와.
얘도 이해를 집에 내 담보
산담 내도 일하시게 담보 와. 들어봐. 네.
얘도 이해를 집에
네 담보 와.
dus 이지기 통이 시와 있는 디 담보디 뭐네 디 담보디로
오다. 근데 진수를 이제 니바죠. 니바. 니바.
음,
오, 네.
if you do not correctly ascertain this point explained in Soraka levels, you will mistakenly think that the lowest of the paths of dhyana and formlessness is the preliminary stage of the first dhyana, and that the first mental state that arises in the preliminary stage is knowledge of characteristics, because knowledge of characteristics is the first of six attentions that are discussed in that regard. So you, so if we do not understand correctly or the point from Sravaka levels, then we might think that attentions that knows the characteristics is the lowest of the paths of dhyana and formlessness. So this is the doubt or questions here. So if we do not understand these sentences correctly, then we might think that the attentions that knows the characteristics is the lowest of the paths of dhyana and formlessness. However, um, the actual lowest point of the paths of dhyana and formlessness is, as I mentioned just now, the beginner in attentions. Beginners of attentions or beginners of attentions, that is preliminary stage of the first dhyana. Yeah, beginners of first attention. Sorry, beginner in attention. Beginner in attention, there is preliminary stage of first dhyana. So this is the lowest point. Beginner in attention of preliminary stage of first dhyana is the lowest point. However, if we do not understand this correctly, then we might think that uh, attention that knows the characteristics is the lowest point. However, that is not so. So as I previously mentioned, preliminary stage of the first dhyana is divided into two, right? And the first one is beginner in attention, and the second one is preliminary stage that purifies afflictions. And these can be further divided into six. And the first one is attention that knows the characteristics, right? So if you do not understand those points from Soraka levels, then we might think that these first subdivisions, is the lowest point of the paths of dhyana and formlessness. So, however, it is not. Then we might mistakenly think that way. So the actual lowest point of the paths of dhyana and formlessness is the beginner in attentions of the preliminary stage uh, of first dhyana. So this is the lowest point. And when we talk about this uh, attention that knows the characteristics being the first in six attentions, here it says first of six attentions, right? So this is when you count these attentions, these particular sets of attentions in six, then attention that knows the characteristic is the first one. So however, if these sets of attentions are specified in eight attentions, then the first one, which is beginner in attention, beginners in attentions of preliminary stage, then it is correct that first of the eight attentions is the first one, is the lowest of the paths of dhyana and formlessness. However, if you were to count, or if you count these sets of attentions in six, since the six attentions, the first one is attention that knows the characteristics, then this attention that knows the characteristics is not the lowest of the path of dhyana and formlessness.
That is the whole Matishuda. Akanda Shini Matoba Santa Minedo Chisa Yomaris. That the old Matilda. Ini Matoba Santa Minedo Chisa Yomari. Nedo de Madonna Shini Maris. Maris, that Shini Toba Nedo Toba Tina Lasarva. Mari. The Chinisudo repeat, but the Yavon has needed Cinsu Nidua. Cinsudo repeat the Chigo in Basuda. Here won't be that Shini Matoba said the University to Maris. You do Maris. 당아도 신이 공부하다 세지지 띵인지 당연히야 아무리 가지고 보러와 진짜서 신이 보아봐야리마 이거 몸장자 띵인지 장자 돈이 까다 신이 두고 여러와 뭐 신이 지고 여러와 뭐 들리지 니 손다 어디에다 간다 정말 쉬어.
So it is illogical to claim this because there is no way for the preliminary stage of the first jhana to arise like that without shamatha having been achieved. It means that you must first achieve some come abiding or shamatha. Then on top of that, then you cultivate the preliminary stage of the first jhana. The preliminary stage of the first jhana refers to the preliminary stage that purifies afflictions. So you must first achieve come abiding, then you achieve the preliminary stage of the first jhana. And if that preliminary stage have not been achieved, then shamatha is not achieved. So preliminary stage here refers to the preliminary stage, the beginner in attention of the preliminary stage of the first jhana. Yeah. So if the beginner in attentions of the preliminary stage of first jhana has not been achieved, shamatha is not achieved. Because we have said that achievements of preliminary stage and come abiding are simultaneous. So if you have not achieved this preliminary stage, then you also do not achieve shamatha. So since knowledge of characteristics is an analytical meditation, shamatha that has not been achieved before cannot be newly accomplished by means of that meditations.
상대 담비 내도 다 친이 수소리 민지 증거도 다 담비 내도 일하시 내 담보도 그것도 쉬고 그래도 그것도 좋아. 이리와
알아.
친이 수소리 민지 담보 걸고 시간에 해서 이리와. 어디 와요. 이슈 들어가고
이중 내가 가봐 이면 하고
시와세. 다 친이 수소리 민지 증거도 다 담보 상담에 내도 이게 담보와 뭐 왜는 거 그래서 자기 몸을 시작하러 이제는 그것도 말리고 그냥 내도
So next, I'm going to talk about one must first attain the beginning of the first preliminary stage, which is the beginner in attention.
내도지 집이 한도 공부 거리 에스 한도 공부 거리나 내도 담보장지 도마다 되겠으나 내가 그래 그래서 와 내도 담보장지 도마다 말했어 이제 그거 와 담보장지 도마다 그래서 다 도마다 말이 많이 비견세 가르를 세나 하지는 많이 제가 그냥 이 공도 이제 두게 이 공도 내도 신이 또 그래서 내도 집이 신이 또 그래서 내도 일하실 때 담보하는 거 내도 일하실 때 담보하는 어디 노래에서 다 담보 지치는데 이제를 많이 되죠.
Must proceed. What about session prior to that's all. Yeah. So, however, it is not immediately at the beginning of the first preliminary stage. So, it here referred to attentions that knows the characteristics. So knowledge of characteristics and attention that knows the characteristics these are the same words. So however, it is not immediately at the beginning of the first preliminary stage. So it refers to the attentions that knows the characteristics, which is one of the first attentions, which is the first of the 6 attentions. It is not immediately at the beginning of the first preliminary, for the shamatha included in the preliminary stage must precede it. So another way of saying this is one must first achieve calm abiding. Then, in dependence on calm abiding, one cultivates the 6 attentions. These 6 attentions are analytical meditations. They are included in special insight. Yeah. So for the shamatha included in the preliminary stage must precede it. So also shamatha included in the preliminary stage also refer to the beginners in attention. Refers to the beginner in attentions or beginners in attentions. Then all the concentration prior to the achievement of the concentration included in the first preliminary stage are single-pointed mental states of the desires. That is why there seem to be very few who achieve even shamatha according to great fact. 얘도 당부디 근데 나는 이제 가서 챙이 소소 리베 이제 당부디 근데 하도 공부 거라 이네 얘도 가서 얘라 집에
얘도 방법도 좀 모르겠어.
얘도 So this attention that knows the characteristics is the beginning of cultivating special insight. It is not the beginning of is not the beginning of mere first preliminary stage. So attention that knows the characteristics among the six attentions, the first one, it is the beginning of cultivating special insight. It is not the beginning of first preliminary stage, which is the beginner in attention.
얘도 이 띵인지 마토 보게 띵인지 난 이제 마토 아까 칸고 미세 자고요 ABCD 샤와 ABC 마토 그래서 칸고만 공시 해봐 자고요 와
辛苦 봐도라
네 그거 미리 처음에 띵인지 메케가 다 띵인지 당부 주는 말지 얘가 요와 그거 그거가 간다 이제 세 마토 시 해봐 자고요 와 이게 예수
So for the shamatha included in the preliminary stage must precede it. So shamatha included in the preliminary stage refers to beginner in attention. So must precede this preliminary stage purifies afflictions or the first of the 6 attentions, which is attention that knows the characteristics. So all the concentration prior to the achievement of the concentration included in the first preliminary stage are single-pointed mental states of the desiriums. So here it talks about before one achieve calm abiding. So we talk about 9 mental states, right? So the 9th mental states and below. So all these are concentrations, and these are the concentrations included in the first preliminary stage of the. So included in the first preliminary stage, there are single-pointedness, single-pointed mental states of the desiriums. So these 9 mental states, for example, they are not consciousness of higher levels. So because when you achieve calm abiding, only when you achieve calm abiding, then at the same time you achieve the consciousness of the higher levels. So before that, then they are single-pointed mental states of the desirium.
디지털 간다 다 신이 간다 좀 치워는 그냥 신이 더 훨씬 뭐나 그러니까 내도 이게 좀 비슷한 대발 밑에 더하지 그래서 다들 나는 이제 바시요 말했다 때 무슨 됐어 와 다들 간다 가서 신이 이제 가서 다 참고와 다들 한도 못 제가 계속
So fearing fearing excessive wordiness, I will not write here about how to free oneself from attachment to the desirium by means of the 6 attentions of the preliminary stage. So because in order to talk about this, then it will takes a lot. It takes a lot of time. Takes a lot of time to explain it. So in order how to say, to avoid excessive worldliness, then Lama Tsongkhapa did not write here about it. So this marks the end of come abiding. So we have complete come abiding chapter. So if you have any question, then you can ask now.
Yeah, that's it. Gesila. I have one question. Okay. For the Monday path, so one will train in the some shamatha and special insight in the desire realm to form realm and then to formless realm. So does it mean that our mental stage were able to cross over the boundary of all these realms, but our physical body will be still in the desire realm? So so when someone is in the meditation stage in the form realm or formless realm, then does this mean that those being in the form realm and the formless realm will be able to notice our mental consciousness? I mean, because we cross over the boundary. So does it mean that one minds will be under the attack of all this being? I mean, for whatever reason, and that's why that could be one of the reason whereby we hear sometimes people went for meditation and then they got crazy or whatever. I mean, this is just my reason. I mean, I just want some clarification on this. Thank you.
让这里即便别lâm的中文呢，你心里来给你，你的劳动的工作咯，你的劳动可是即便别劳动的来讲呢，你我都对心呢的刚刚来的重要咯，lâm讲嘛来的重要咯，你变那就是呢，帮助也lâm可是的变那就是呢的苏康的头外呢，苏康的心的重要咯。即点被哈动了电呢，主看的心的痛呢，因yang ngang chu gi supo than du tham la yo lo ini ngang chu gi sim de su kham da de le ba re dang de kha sa pa gi do ba lam de ni ma se de ini de pa gi do yo lo su gi sim de ngi shi de ni de se de top gi yo ne le ini ngang chu gi sim pa gi do gi yo ma ro sim de pa so ini de kain sina ini pena session na so kansa ji ini yang su kham ge something thang bo pena session na de to cha ba ini khong gi tiwa de ni ang chu gi sim de pa do ai na si ang chu gi sim de pa do ai na ini yang su kham ge sim jen de zo su kham ge kansa de zo de sim de de kham ne de kham gi de be ka da right ini de de kham gi mi yin be sim yin ba ini ha go gi yo na ini tiang no ba che gi yo na no ba che tu yo na kai sina mi kha shi ge gong gyal ge de yo ma di cha ya yo ro ini ang de kong zu yang de gong gyal ge ini di sim su kham la de pa do je ini de su kham gi khang sa de ha go ne ini di no ba gi yo re chen de na
근데 그 지금 말은 내가 그렇게 지금 말. 아니 내가 지금 말했어. 그래서 소소의 공제해야 돼. 나 소소 공대 많고 봐 이제 봐이나. 이 간다 소소의 세나 간다 당이 그 요 말와. 다 소소 공제다 많이 봐. 지야 공제다 디스 많이 봐. 중바이나 다 간다 세나 소소게. 다 간다 is no yo 라고 보고 있는데 당이 그 레벨로 아마. 근데 내가 지야 계속 말했어. 내가 지금 지금 말했어.
ini ngang chu o tambo sim ni che de le gi yo ro tambo de ka su kham gi something tambo de le wai na ho wai na sim ni che ro ro sim ni che
우리 인디 들어와. 이게 토는 거.
omegi yo de
인디 토는.
pena cha sha
토는 다 문시다. 얘도 토는데 고미 인디 토는.
omegi yo de pena cha sha na
고민인데 다 신이 들어와. 근데 신이 돌을 또 고민인데 돌을 거라. 돌을 거라. 이도 돌을 거라.
이 고민인데
고민인데로 왔어. 어디 공시 시에 봐.
그래서 근데 세진 보드리 자기 말어. 디디 차 말어. yang di kasa di something thambo de che wa ni de che rimbo de ne kya da ne me de de ne ina cha gi yo sukha mina di kasa yen di de wa that's. So independence on come abiding when we cultivate special insight, the special insight of a mundane path, then we proceed to higher levels such as from desire realm, then we proceed to the first jhana that is included in the form realms. Then it doesn't mean that our mind goes there. It doesn't mean that our mind travels there or goes there. It's just a level of our mental states. Yeah, so it's a mental state or it's a level of our mind that when we have achieved such concentration, which is the calm abiding, then this concentration is the level that is included in the form realms. So it doesn't mean that our mind physically go there. Then other beings of those beings in the form realms that notice it, then they cause harm to it, and then makes the meditators go crazy or give them a hard time mentally. So it's not like that. So it's just a level of our mental states. Then why some people when they do meditations and they have some of them they have they face some mental problems or some even go crazy is because they do not meditate in a proper way. So if they do not meditate in a proper way or they meditate in the wrong way, that's why they face the mental problems. So if one meditates fully in a proper way, then one will not have these mental problems.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Kishala, I have one question there. Back to the stanza, praise in honor of one worthy of honor. That one, yeah, that's right. Okay, the beings who have even gone up to the peak of existence, does that mean those beings in the formless realm, which would be the God realm, and because they still have suffering, and their suffering is mainly the pervasive compounded suffering because of the contaminated aggregate. Is that what it meant?
The question is whether they still have the pervasive suffering, right?
Well, what I mean is that the beings in that peak of existence, does that apply to the formless realm, which is the God realm, and they are still suffering because of the third suffering, which is the most subtle suffering, which is the contaminated karma or the pervasive compounded suffering.
Islani di sisi ki kansa, sisi la yobe kansa denzo, ini di kasi sumi kam ki kansa ina, sumi kam la yores de jiwa tambore. Iwa di ini di kansa denzo yang ha hai ne la yores. Ini di sumba di kongzo dungi tandu nyungbi yores. Kansi na dungi sum yoro, dungi sum ini yang di kasa di kyabi dungi di tandu nyungbi yonas, di jiwa sum di yores.
시제 제차디 시제라 제차디 고수메기다 가르고와
수메기
고수메기다 와
수메기 탐지 이미지 수메기 하레스
가르와 누가요 말이 누가를 주니가 뭐 소화되나 소화되나 소화스나
당뇨 얘네들 야베 두지 동네들 단도
수메가 나서 저번 지 동아리가 말이 그거 심마시는 거죠 저번 지 동아 그런 거 비로와 이요 말이 와 이요 뭐 수공이요
수공대 매상
이도요
저희 두지 용해 요 말이
이게요 뭐 주 등에 가서 상대 시간을 쓰면서 그만 제가 등에 요 말이죠. 등에 요 말이. 근데 상대 시간을 쓰여서 소화 단용만 돼요.
상대 시간 내종
야 쓰면 버려 소화 단용 다녀. 소화 단용만 돼요. 맞지? 소화 대화 소화 그래서 미치요. 소화 단용 말 하나씩. 소화 단용만 돼요.
ini
등에 요 맞죠.
tapi tuji itu ni yang maybe gitu yang su yang ke yang lain
소매를 와. 그렇게.
yeah. So those beings in peak of existence, they are in formless realm, and then they are a god realm as well because they are gods they are formless god or the gods in formless realm. So may come gihar, yeah. So they are gods in formless realm, and then they have no suffering, not even pervasive suffering. So basically, when one achieves a fourth concentrate, fourth dhyana onwards, they do not have suffering. They do not have the feeling, the pleasant feeling. They do not have the unpleasant feeling. What feeling do they have is equanimity. Yeah, equal. Yeah, okay, the equanimity. The feelings of how's that?
Neutral.
Neutral. Yeah. Yeah, you also know Tibetan, right? Better than me, yeah. So they only have a neutral feelings. They do not have the pleasant feeling nor unpleasant feelings. So why do they, why they don't have pervasive suffering is because they do not have these form aggregates.
그날에 가서 공부 시바시면 공부 나요, 와. 공부 가서 루징고 토요 뭐 이게 나와시 공부 나요 아니지. 공부하는데 공부 심하시는 뭐 당보. 여만 루징
공부 심하시 요래 말로.
당보리요. 공부 나요, 와.
ini di choy phongbo yo ne le ini di choy tangyong de nyongyo wa
좋아들 좋아 동료가 좋아 동네에서 비추는 영.
ini di choy tangyong de nyongyo ro nyongyo 영화 요라 용기 요나 ini 영화 요라 so aso so those beings of formless realms when we talk about aggregates, there are 5 aggregates, right? Form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. So so and these 5 among these 5 aggregates, those beings of formless realms, they have the later 4 aggregates. They do not have the form aggregates. They have the later 4 aggregates, and then they have the aggregates of feeling. So what do they feel? They feel the neutral feeling.
Thank you.
Krishna, I have one question. For what we
Jaya.
have yeah, sorry.
Maybe
Yes.
if you don't mind, I just want to clarify. Can maybe in your translation, you may make mistake because pervasive suffering is up to the peak of samsara. Only the suffering of change, the birth they do not have. But I thought pervasive means up to peak of samsara also they do have the suffering because they still have the 4 aggregates: feeling, discrimination, composition factor, and consciousness. But you said people at the peak of samsara do not have pervasive suffering.
Kisha. Ini kisla dia kan sisi ki kansa den so la in ni sum yo ro ni de du ni sum de yo wa na di sum ji yo ma ro sum ji yo ma ro ni de kong di sam sui na to de ko ye sam sui na de kya ba du je ye dong ye na ini kan sisi ki kansa den so yang kya ba du je ye dong ye yo res ai sina de pongbo shi ama shi de tan du yo ro pongbo chi ma shi tan du yo zang ini de kya ba du je ye dong ye de nyong yo res really enough.
대처럼 여부 있었어.
Yeah, well said.
당가서 수지 공부대. 내가 지난 가서 수지 공부 저번 뒤지는 거 저거.
수홍대.
공부대.
Kaba duje ki dunge res.
chaban diji dunga dila wa 맞아 그 chaban dunga 참아라 봐 유사기 첩돼야 돼 협사를 수주로 차는 거 와.
캡사이나.
그래서 이게 chaban dunga지. 어디 공부 심할 나 그지나 동아스 친 너무 많다 수라. 그래요. 동에서
Sumela de dunge jiyo.
동에서 또 너무 동에서 또 너무 많아. 내 자리 때 간다. 나 공부 심할 때 열어서 공부 심할 때 열어서 동에서는 가서 동에서 주의동아 저 주의동아 제 동아 열어와. 동에서 또 아니 요 말고 왜냐. 동에서 어제 와서자 생각된다 간다 가서 수분데 가서 담아지 저번 디지 동아리 해서라고. 내 처벌서 동아 평소 인사 이게 진짜 철사도 그렸어. 저번 디지 동아서.
예수데 메와이나 de 캡사 요마리 캡사 메와이나 de kaba duje ki dunge 용지 요마.
공부 심하게 열어서 열었다. 이거 공부 심하게 열어서 열었어.
ini pombo chima shi ne di kaba duje ki dunge ki 캡사이나.
그때 같이 뭐 이제 말했죠. 내가 당에 상담지와
아무도 시야이나.
이게 아무튼 맞을 수 있는데 저번 이동안 뒤에 말했어.
캡사디 요마. So in general, when we talk about formless realms, so those beings, there is no suffering at all in formless realm. So when we talk about, then you say, since those being in formless realms do not have form, then they do not even have the pervasive suffering. So why we say that they do not have pervasive suffering? Because when we say pervasive suffering, it is a suffering that pervades something, and the place or the basis it pervades is the form aggregates. Since those being in formless realms do not have form, and since there is no form, there is no basis of pervasions. Since there is no pervasive of pervasions, there is no pervasive suffering.
But one can say the pervasive means it pervades from the lowest hell realm to the peak of cyclic existence, right? Does it necessarily mean that it pervades the body?
Ini di kapa tuji ki dunia seade, ini dia nyinjim kasa kapsa dia yang suhung lah kap ingo revés, yang na ini di kapa tuji ki dunia seade yang kasa nyewa ini di to sije, koma kata di gong sije di ini dia yang kapa ini lapsuk yonas. minji dia yang suhung lah kapa.
지불하라 잡아서 말했어. 어디에 가서 공부 잡아 주시 동안 놓쳐서래서 그러더라.
ini dia yang sije lah dia yang kapa yona.
놓쳐서래서. 이나 왔다 수고도 요 말이와. 요 말이 뒷파시 애등이 앉아지 따로그지 지당에 파치에 요로 보세요. 도시에는 만나는 잡아 주시 동안 할게. 뒷파시 요로 무시면 와.
내 요를
요로. 저번 디지 동안 요르나. 아마 동안 세워도 요 말씀. 동안 세워도 요.
디캡기 요네래 ini di tungai yo.
저번 디지 동안에 저번 디지 동안 요서는 비싸다.
Biji di sari ini di tungai yo wares. Ini di kislagi di simji jiin ba.
tungai yo biasa. Tapi 첩들 어디 첩들.
tapi yo.
남이 뭐 첩.
님이 그래서 냐면에 시즈 봐도 ini di cap기 요로. ini tungai yo wares.
tungai yo biasa.
ini di 양게 di 따지 지기 나야나. Yeah. So one is okay to say that this pervasive suffering pervades from the lowest hell up to the peak of existence, but this sukamla because the sijela di dungeyo maris. But as this peak of existence has no suffering.
저번 디지 동안 찾아 가지고.
근데 랍초기 요네래 이네 디시제기 강사된소 이네 등의 용이요 Yeah. So even though it is okay to say that this pervasive suffering pervades from the lowest hell to the peak of existence. However, those beings in the peak of existence do not have suffering.
Then why are they in cyclic existence? Why are they included in cyclic existence?
데네나 에네 가르치네 데 코알라 데 디비오에스 코에 디비오에스 and this is la yoba ene tungi mena ene de 가르치네 yang de koala 지기오에스 and the 코에 나라 de 지기오에스 and the koala 다 요마레스 아
뭐뭐 진짜 코알라 니리 너무 좋아하는 코알라 요리스 너무 좋아하는 코알라 요리스
너무 좋아
너무 좋아하는 코알라 요리스
Yeah. So it is because they have not abundant afflictions. So free from afflictions and free from samsaras are simultaneous. Yeah, are simultaneous.
아빠 토야 맞지. 아빠 맞으세요 너무 보여 말이스. 하나 바꿔주는 거를 계산 하세.
So why they are still in cyclic existence is because they haven't achieved liberations. Why they haven't achieved liberations? Because they have not abandoned afflictions.
So it's 6 o'clock. Do you have time for one more question?
Coba Simpson, anything coba. So yeah, please.
Okay, quick question. Okay, after the 9th mental abiding, then you achieve the level of the first attention, which is attention that knows characteristics, and there are 6 levels of attention. My quick question is, to attain.
Okay. Sorry. Can you please repeat? When you say you achieve 9th mental abiding, then one achieve
the first attention, right? The first level of attention, which is the attention that knows the characteristics, correct?
Okay. You continue your question.
Yes. So there are 6 levels of attention thereafter. My question is, are these levels of attention acquired innately, or are they what's the other word for innate? What's the other one? Intellectually acquired. Because when you are meditating in calm abiding, you are basically non-analytical, right, at that point of time. How do you graduate? How do you graduate from the 9th level to the 6 levels of attention before you go to special insight? How is that progression done? It seems very complicated to me.
Bila ini kongli kuwa ina de tibeshi sini kuwa de tomne de jela yiji chui tangbo de tsin soso ribe yiji de Tokyo res ene de yiji chui denzo de kunna ina hengi ina jawa tangbo de niba de ngasu de shine de tomne shine de tomne ene de jela kaza de hadong de den kaza any day she needed a motor of chair, any day Jelahang to go arrow. Any day and it to view it. I don't know the John Roji. She need not the Jing Roji, anything and it to view this. I don't because she need not the John Gangang. Any day Jella I don't know the young Jihong Gangang or any kind of anyone need to he can't do viewers.
Good. Sini Gubania Gumje Kanda Shini Tony did Shini Chamba to Goremazel, Hanto Division to Yomar.
Shini Kamba the Tokyo
Kamba, Ilashmile Tamba. Since the Vision Maris, since the Vision Mando Suchi Bishara. Sitting in the Marco. In the Marawa. Yeah, quote on the thing of Shinitos Lomarwa. So, since the Vision. 한도 간다 누가는 차원으로 길바치비셔로 신이서도 센세지 버와 센세지 봐 다단다데 신이 토르데 가서 산리 담비네도 토니 신이 토르서와데 얘네도 일하시비래 담보와 장바토야 이니 장바토야지 마도 맞어 길바치비 이제 도경 이셔로 도경 말 길바치비셔로 가서 다들 한도지 코스도 받아고 싶는 거와 한도지 코스도 봐 어디 네 담보치 되어 아니 받은 가서 저나 신의 중간에 안도서도 가서 신의 중간에 미발라 제도지 통고 또 가서 진상 반에 아무 신의 거 신의 돈에 대 신의 대응 안에 받으라 제바치네 제바치비 제럽 대유도 이제 간다 하도지 되고
대 미바 대 주바 체네
제도지 저
제도 그 미바 집에 똑지
요 집에 도지 아 시자지 대이스비 대리 소집이 제럽스는 거라가 하는 괜히 들어와
예 가서 미바 주바 집에 똑지
진이 좀 많이라 제도지 정비 제도지 정비 시자지 대이스비 거에서 거라 내기 만에랑
신장
시자지 대이스비 거에 나도 요라 수고 제바치 셔럽스 수고 제바치 셔럽스 하고 아무 가서 진이 토 와, 얘도 다 신이 증안이 장기 미발라 제바제 제도지 장비 내가 간다 다 시장지 이 신비권에 내가 장비要素 제바지 싫어서
단지 줄라
뭐 아니라
당줄라
당연히 나도 그런 일을 와 제바지 싫어
파동 줄라
일을 제바지 싫어 일을 제바지 싫어서 뭐 들리지 도고 해서 이제 증안이 도고 해마도 신이도 우열했어 아무 신이라 냥바샤 또 신이기 냥바샤 그 냥바샤는 때문에 받들라 그 상황단에 그 제바시 그 제바지 어디 때 시장지 이 신우디 이 신부권에 또 장유라 제바지 싫었지 아까 통해
단지 줄라 소도비 싫어
싫어
줄라 기요
지금
yeah. So when one attain the nine mental states, then the next step one will achieve is calm abiding. So calm abiding here refers to pure calm abiding or calm abiding alone. So another word for this is the beginner in attention. Beginner in attentions of the preliminary stage of the first dhyana. So yeah, so before one achieve the first of the six attentions, so the first of the six attentions is attention that knows the characteristics, right? These come after calm abiding. And also, in other words, beginner in attentions of the preliminary stage of the first dhyana. So these come after. So, and these six attentions are not concentrations. And they are included in the category of special insight, and then they are wisdom that analyzes analyzing wisdom. Yeah, so six attentions. Yeah, so six attentions are concentrations, and they are a wisdom and analyzing wisdom that is included in the category of special insight. So how one proceeds or move from abiding to special insight is when one is in the calm abiding state of calm abiding, one analyze your object of observation, and by the power of analyzing your observations, whenever one is infused with the pliancy, whenever one is infused with the bliss of pliancy, then discerning wisdom with regard to that object is generated in your continuum. So this is how it moved from calm abiding to special insight is from one is in the meditative equipoise, and from within this calm abiding, one analyze objects of observation, and by the power of analyzing your object of observations, whenever one is infused with the bliss of pliancy, then discerning wisdom with regard to that object is generated in your continuum.
신이수도 디비지스 같은데 한동으로 잡으면 아무 진파를 잡고
아동
신이수도 디비지요 예 한동으로
조이나 대야나 대 당보 대마도
어디 뭐 들어와 신이수도 디비지 대마도 한동 진티바라고 잡고 아까 쩍받치 싫어 들어와 유지 싫으면 한번 신바랑 잡으면
지금 시험에 내 지름 말이
뭐 듣고
지름 말이
지리를 좀 뭐라고
yeah. So the first of the six attentions, which is attention that knows characteristics, it is not an actual special insight. It is an approximate special insight, and it is an analyzing wisdom. Is an analyzing wisdom.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't do the chicken but you can do it. In the Jimmy Thomas, Regular Savannah do some Timber simply with the Pelota, and then you do kill a mark the near the bird. You wash it never mind, then you do the Bashiday, digital ways.
So we conclude these sessions with dedications. We dedicate the roots of virtue to all Buddhist. We dedicate these roots of virtues to the flourishing of Buddha Dharma and all sentient beings. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to all upholders of Buddha's teaching, mainly His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to live eons long, have excellent health, and may all their holy wishes and enlightenment activities be accomplished instantaneously and be spread in all directions. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to our beloved teacher, Kyabsha Lama Zopa Rinpoche. May Rinpoche's holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously, and may the unmistaken reincarnations of Rinpoche be swiftly returned and continue to turn the wheel of Dharma for the sake of teachings and sentient beings, so that we will have the opportunity to receive precious teachings from you again, Rinpoche. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to the world peace. May excellent happiness prevail in the world. May wars, conflicts, disaster, natural disaster, endemic diseases, and etc. be pacified immediately. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to all sentient beings, especially those sentient beings who are in the state of suffering, and who pass away, and also those who help others, such as those doctors, nurses, and those who help others financially. So may their sufferings be pacified immediately and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment.
Dāgē jīnyā zābē
Kiwa di tendan ruwa kunla kambela, kiwa jisun dosan rawa ye teme nyingbo rindu se je cho, chanchu sen kyo rinpo je ma je pa na chi kyu chi ke pa nyam pa me pa yang,
Munye
kondo me wa shu.
Jāmbē
Kiwa
pāyē
chi ka chi pa da kondo sambo de yang di jin de da chi chi su da lu chi
Kiwa
kiwa
de
de da
da
dan je ra to po. Munye da wa rinpo je ma je pa na chi kyu chi ke pa nyam pa me pa yang,
Munye
kondo
kondo
me
me
wa
wā
shu.
shū
Da wa rinpo je ma je pa na chi kyu chi ke pa nyam pa me pa yang,
Munye kondo
be wa shu. Che sun du ju be la chi che se ze ka che de lu gen chan na pe mo ten sing ja zo la so wa de so shi je le do shu.
Jīnyā kāntā
Pe de ma de ba ka ne ju we sam pe shi no ka de su me ten sing ja zo la so wa de so tu shi le do shu.
Dāmbē tī
Me ja se de ra do lo sang ja wa ya se kyo ba je ra ja shi kya yu ma de pe de ba ju be ge le shu.
Mōsō
So
tō
ge
kē
tu
tū
de
tē
re
rē
bo je shi da ju be tsi tsi pe wa la na ya mi shu su be ku cha che tsi pe ji zi la ma se wa de pe de ma lu ju we ku chu.
Yā yé tē nā mā jō rō wā yé tē nā chī tō tsā mā tsē pē ngō tō pā shī wā shī tē yī rē bā. Kē sē nā kē sā pē shī pē tō